And we're gonna have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny fucking Kaye. And when Santa squeezes his fat white ass down that chimney tonight, he's gonna find the jolliest bunch of assholes this side of the nut house.
Don't wait till the night before Christmas to be good.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 106 of the Prehistoric Podcast, part 10 in our Long Running Club podcast at Christmas. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Francois Nation.
I'm Andrew Sorsdahl.
I have such a funny thing to read to you. So, Andrew was talking about just off camera. There's a camera set up, and you can actually see us. A little bit of banter. But off camera, we were talking about how. Sorry, Andrew, I'll let you say.
Peter released a list of phrases, colloquialisms that we need to change because they're harmful to vegans or something.
And one of the examples.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh, so it's not harmful to animals; it's harmful to vegans.
That's
and
animals.
I like that much better than trying to be politically correct towards things that don't understand English.
From you saying B, I want to bring this up. So, this is a I hope totally serious thing, and this is a list of substitutes for anti-bee language. Instead of, quote, "Oh no, a swarm of bees," say, "Finally, a blessing of bumbles." Instead of, "I'm allergic to bee stings," you say, "I haven't accepted my love for bees yet, and my body reacts accordingly." Instead of saying, "Holy shit, that bee has a gun," say, "I'm proud of that bee for expressing its rights." Instead of saying, "I don't believe in bees," say, "I'm open to the possibility of bees." And finally, "Honey is overrated." Instead say, "I wish bees could vote."
Oh, that's great.
That is incredible.
So, if you do tune into the Prehistoric Podcast, we do, on this program, as always, express anti-bee language is a no-no. So please try and change your vocabulary. Anti-bee language is a very serious issue that is plaguing North American society. And speaking of honey, today's episode is brought to you by Sweet Sippin' Canadian Maple Whiskey, made with 100% anti-bee-free bee syrup.
Anti-bee free
Bee syrup.
Anti-bee free.
Yeah, it's
Is that
anti-bee.
a double negative? Wouldn't that be pro-bee syrup, which would be honey, which is not good?
No, this is anti-bee free.
Don't we want it to be
there are
bee-free?
certain-
No, it's free of anti-bee. No, we can use their syrup.
See,
It's just the language.
They want us to use their honey?
There are certain syrups that are against the plight of the bees.
Oh yeah, there's nothing even made by it. You're
They're
just saying
anti-bees.
that there are certain syrups that are This is anti-bee free.
This is anti-bee free, Sweet Sippin' Canadian Maple Whiskey.
Okay, I see. So it'd be like Antifa free.
Yes.
Like that thing doesn't
And
have Antifa.
on behalf of Highwood Distillers out of High River, Alberta, they're a super pro anti-bee company. They're an anti-bee.
Anti-bee. No, they're anti-bee free. Not anti-bee free.
No, but they're anti-bee. They're against anti-bee
Yes.
language.
Yes.
So they support. And next episode, we're actually going to talk about anti-C language.
C?
So because we had anti-A language, anti-B language, and this will be anti-C language. So language that is offensive to large bodies of water.
Oh, I thought you meant like.
Not the C word.
I think it's letter C.
No, the C.
What's
A, B, and then C.
What's a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
You'd think it'd be R, but his first love be the C.
I've heard this. Yeah, that's funny.
So that was just an example by Andrew of some anti-C language, and we're not going to use that on this program.
Laugh at my dad joke.
Super important that we just keep that in mind moving forward on this program specifically.
Yes, vegans are a special segment of society. We really don't want to offend them by using terms that have animal.
And once again, it's like that one of those things where it's like, was there ever an offended vegan, or was it some asshole decided that it's like, you vegans should be offended?
Yes.
Because it's like, I think vegans know that they are not the common. They are not a common thing.
The answer to your query is yes.
Yes.
It's both of those things. I think.
I've never met a fucking. I don't meet very many vegans. To be fair, it's like we like to portray vegans as these like I'm a vegan. I'm a vegan, but it's like I know a couple vegans and none of them are assholes about being vegans.
Because the ones that aren't assholes about being vegans just live their lives and don't give a fuck what you or I do. They say, yeah, this is a good choice for me, so I'm going to do it. It's like, cool.
Which is good.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
I've said it before and I'll say it now. I think they're morally superior to us. I know it's contentious.
It's the same thing with people who do CrossFit. Like, not everyone who does CrossFit is
has to be an asshole about it.
A zealot about it.
Speaking of zealousness,
like me,
I just recently finished a television program. It was a mini-series.
Was it Ken Burns something?
It was a 7-part mini-series.
It was a mini-series, Futurama season 6
on the Roosevelts. It was a Ken Burns PBS documentary.
See, Brad he exclusively watches Ken Burns. Now that he's watched the Roosevelts to go back to Prohibition.
That's not really a mini-series.
I actually just finished Prohibition, so now instead of watching American Dad or Family Guy, that's done. I just go Prohibition, the Roosevelts, the Civil War, Prohibition, the Roosevelts, Civil War.
I really
and I just do that.
Don't like that you're more of a Teddy guy than a Franklin guy, and it doesn't make any sense to me why you would be that way.
Don't get me wrong, I love Franklin. This is like a 9.9 out of 10 versus a 10 out of 10.
I didn't say that you didn't like Franklin. It's just like, to me, it doesn't make any sense that someone would like Theodore Roosevelt over Franklin Roosevelt.
Because TR is more of a character. That's why I like TR as a person. He's more interesting to me.
What are you doing? The one is in a fucking wheelchair.
But that's not like a personality thing. He's just like a guy with polio that overcame it. Yeah, that's incredible.
He's like a character you write in a fucking book.
Like TR is a caricature, like saying things like bully and like chasing police around in outfits that you had custom made, and then like moving out to North Dakota to start a failure of a ranch because you wanted to become more of a man, and referring to yourself third person as the bull moose. Like I just like enjoy the caricature of Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay, I think Brad identifies with that.
Identifies with Teddy Roosevelt.
FDR, I appreciate overcoming the polio and stuff. Also, like
fighting World War II or whatever.
The stuff like I'm not really into like that he and Eleanor kind of had a fake House of Cards marriage, and he wasn't very good to her, and there's like a lot of that because I also really like Eleanor.
Yeah,
but
she was awesome too.
Yeah, she was amazing. All three of them were amazing.
But also, like the best thing about the Roosevelts, I think, is the fact that they were not on the same political party.
Yeah.
Like that's so. It's like you have these two fucking like largely because like FDR might be like JFK too, but it's like but FDR might be remembered as the greatest president in United States history. Teddy very much up there as well.
Top 5 usually goes Abraham Lincoln 1, FDR 2, Washington 3, TR 4.
Why the fuck is George Washington on that list? Just because he's a founding father?
Well, he's a founding father. He personally led a bunch of military battles. Could have started a dictatorship and then stepped down because everyone was like, just be the leader forever.
Be the king.
And he's like, no, I don't want that.
He
stepped down at the height of ultimate power in a new...
He cast the ring into the volcano.
He did what Frodo should have done.
So he did what Isildur should have done.
Yeah, he did what Isildur should have done.
He did what Isildur could not do.
Isildur could not do.
To put it in terms that you can understand.
I'm just like...
And like, also like, one had a ring that made you invisible. The other one had control of the newest exciting empire.
Superpower, yeah.
I see. No, I'm not like George Washington. I'm not. I guess it's.
Sorry, what?
I guess it's just like the whole, which like contextually just was like obviously in that time in history, slaughtering the native population that's what we do on Thursday. So it's like you can't really hold that stuff against them. Yeah, I don't know. I get the others have less that thing.
TR
like
to me,
Abraham Lincoln doesn't really have that.
He led the country through Civil War. He's the only politician ever to be elected during a civil war.
Talking about Lincoln right now?
Yeah. He emancipated the slaves.
Oh, he's like, yeah. He's a saint, sort of. Like
the other thing that's really interesting to me that you were saying about how they're in different political parties is it really shows how far American politics has come from becoming this super divisive, gross thing. Like, TR and
Today?
FDR have very similar platforms, and they ran for the opposite parties.
Yeah.
And they essentially had the same beliefs.
They was just like,
FDR is like more left wing than Teddy, but they still essentially had the same beliefs. It was like stand up for everybody. Like Teddy's whole thing was like, Teddy's just more of like what word am I looking for? Where you can do whatever you want. Political party.
Looking for libertarian.
Libertarian. It's more libertarian. It's like, we're not going to set you up for success, but we're going to make sure that the government doesn't stop you from succeeding. Whereas FDR is like, that's all well and good, but the government will go ahead and try and help you succeed.
yeah, like help,
more of a welfare state.
helping the poor and that kind of thing.
But like now, Teddy Roosevelt would be a Democrat. The current political climate, he would not be
a Democrat for sure. Well, yeah.
What do you think about? What do you think of? Sorry, I listened to an interesting thing about efforts that are being made right now in American politics to reform both the Electoral College and taking money out of politics.
Yeah, that both those things need to happen.
It'd be incredible.
Teddy Roosevelt tried to do that in 1900.
If your campaign had to be funded by
the people.
Yes, by the people.
Because there's a current bill that's going to be going to Congress soon. Yeah, sure. Like, it's hoping to get there, I guess. But one of the things that it's suggesting is essentially giving every individual these like chits that are worth so much that I can't remember how much it is, but it's like the amount that you give towards the election or whatever, your tax. Every American has to give $50 minimum, and so you get $50 that you can put towards a campaign. And it's like the idea being that like, because then politicians would have to pander to people and everyone instead of just these interest groups that are paying them money. And the other thing was this electoral reform suggestion, basically because you in order to get the Constitution changed, you have to have most of the states on board. But there's this bill, I guess, they could pass that would essentially have it so that each state would have to give their electoral college votes to the candidate that won the popular vote. So if the Republicans won the popular vote in your state,
you have to
even if they didn't win it in your state, you have to give your electoral college votes to the Republican candidate because they won the popular vote.
Right, so you're talking about like nomination, not actual presidential voting.
Yes, yeah.
Because essentially,
the electoral college,
like TR, interestingly, in a really strong parallel with Bernie Sanders, went out and campaigned when he stepped away from the Republicans and started a new progressive party called the Bull Moose Party, and he.
You shouldn't.
If
you want to win, you shouldn't have a party called the Bull Moose.
Well, it was called the Progressive Party, but everyone just called it the Bull Moose Party because it was him.
Okay.
It's like it was colloquially referred to as the Bull Moose Party, but then officially became it because
the Progressive Party.
So anyway, he went and campaigned and like got all the popular vote, and then went to the Republicans and was like, "Hey, I got all the popular vote." They're like, "Nah, we don't want you though, so fuck off." And the same thing happened with Bernie Sanders. It was like everybody wants Bernie Sanders, and the DNC is like, "No, we're not. We don't want that."
That's the saddest thing ever. If you watch the footage from the Democratic National Convention,
they just lied and cheated.
Yeah, it's so awful.
Also, the fact that Bernie didn't stand up and say something. He still went along party lines after he got fucked, and has been. Like, he didn't get up. He should be the first person to be standing up and being like, "The system needs to change." And
I just like it's I just from all this television stuff, it's like politics are so. It's just shit. If you are a person who's like, I would like to be the president one day.
No,
it is not up to you at all. No matter how, it doesn't matter how much work you put in. They will choose.
It's just a popularity contest.
Yeah, they will choose who they want, and it has nothing to do with how qualified you are to be president.
There are thousands and thousands of people, I'm assuming, throughout the United States who make it their life's mission to become president, who never even come close.
Never, yeah.
Like, they're like, dedicate their whole lives to it and never even come within a fucking whisper of it.
It's... I really suggest watching. So I subscribed to like a free month of Crave a little while ago, like last month. And anyway, so I've been like fucking hammering through their library of HBO movies because they're movies that never get advertisements because like they're not big budget movies, but like a lot of them are really good. I watched one.
What about the gay people that we watched?
What was that one?
Broadway.
The True Heart or the something like that.
Something
the one with
Mortal Engines.
Mortal Engines. The one with Mark Ruffalo in it. Yeah, I think it was The Honest Heart or The True Heart or something like that. That one was very good. But I watched one.
Oh, about the AIDS epidemic. Yeah, I kind of watched part of that.
That was the True Heart one.
Yeah.
Watched another one about the 2008 presidential election and about how Sarah Palin got involved in that. Amazing.
Oh, that's really good. I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It is like it is crazy. That's another movie that shows because like House of Cards presents politics as this like seedy, like it's all planned years in advance and it's like all this crazy shit. And then that movie really showed that it's like to an extent, but also they fuck up and just make decisions that don't make any sense all the time.
Well, there's a political guy on this podcast I was listening to, and he's like, I wish it was like House of Cards because at least stuff would get done.
Yeah.
Like it's not at all like House of Cards.
They're so interesting. So I was just having a conversation with someone, and they were telling me that Donald Trump's nomination the person that he picked for the international chair of the International Trade Committee or whatever, one of those trading organizations, they found him on Google by searching guy with racist books against Chinese people, and found an economist who writes these crazy books about how Chinese people are awful, and then they hired him because he wanted somebody who was going to be an opponent to the Chinese. Found him on Google search, called him, was like, do you want this fucking prestigious position in the government? He's like, yep, sure.
The thing is, like, I heard a really interesting point the other day about because of how the media's changed and how there's like the two before, like when Watergate was happening, everyone was being not fed, but like everyone was getting the same facts and the same story, and that forced Nixon to step down because it was a scandal. We were keeping these facts and it kept happening, and everyone in the country was on the same page. But now with the current Trump scandal, there's two separate bubbles. There's the right-wing bubble and the left-wing bubble. And people in the right-wing bubble aren't hearing any of the stories that people in the left-wing bubble are hearing with regards to, not just like stories like propaganda, like actual facts that are happening about this scandal.
And like vice versa to an extent, I would imagine. Like the left-wing,
To a certain extent,
left-wing media is probably
Emphasizing it a little.
Yeah, emphasizing certain things and like de-emphasizing other things.
But the point being that there's a large segment of the population that's totally uninformed about what's happening, and he compared what the guy I was listening to compared what's happening with Trump now to Watergate. He's like, oh yeah, I don't know if Trump should be impeached, but he should for sure step down at this point. But there's just no pressure. Like there's not the same pressure that there was when Nixon was.
Have you
going
guys?
through that.
I ask Brad this all the time, but he always says no. Have you guys seen that there's this new YouTube online right-wing media source thing? Like
you've told me about it.
You pay like a subscription fee, and it's just right-wing. Like it's like hyper right-wing, and like I've seen a lot of their. I don't.
Was it like Louder with Crowder and all those guys?
I'm not sure. It's a lot of people who look like some of them look very young and hip and like actually like like it's terrifying to me because like the one thing the left has always had on the right is that we have young, like the newer generation is usually like you see they're very portrayed as left, whereas it's like old white men are right and they're dying anyways. But this I was like,
because
fuck, like these are a lot of really cool hip young people, and they keep talking about how black people need to not be a thing anymore, and it's like, oh, I don't like it when I see a young person talking about that. Like that makes me sad.
That's the thing about with alt-right people is like, not all of them, like from the research and whatever, a little bit of stuff that I've done, most of them aren't even, it's not even about, like racist isn't even a thing for most of them. The big thing is they are what a lot of people would consider to be transphobic, to varying degrees, and some homophobic, but most of them aren't even homophobic. It's just like, don't tell me what to say. It's like where you get sucked in. It's like the progressive movement of like being politically correct and like word policing and whatever. Bring all these young people into the conservative viewpoint.
People are sick of the snowflake shit. They're sick of like.
Yeah, I'm actually feel bad for saying like the race thing because it's like it's funny. I like saying it because it's funny, but I actually really hate that tactic that people use politically, where it's like you say one thing and it completely destroys the reasonable argument
So
that might have been had. Yeah, you say, "Oh, you're a fucking racist," and then it's like,
or you're a Nazi. You can never recover from.
well,
that.
this fucking sucks because it's like I actually had some points I wanted to make that made sense, and a lot of people might get on board with. But now it's like you've completely vilified my argument by calling me a fucking racist. Same thing with liberals and like. Oh, I'm trying to think. What do they say to liberals? It used to be such a thing.
You piece of shit.
Nothing. That's the thing. That's the current problem with how the
Self-destruct.
how it goes.
Snowflake, I guess. But.
It's like liberals have this word they can just throw at like progressive, hyper progressive people have this word they can cast upon people who don't agree with them. They can call you a Nazi or a racist. And as soon as that you get turn that label, nothing you have to say matters. But there's nothing that can be tossed back the other way that does this. That has the same.
That has the same effect. You say like hippie, but like.
No one's. That's not stopping.
Yeah, it's like,
that's not stopping someone from giving a talk at a college.
No.
So here's my thing, and Andrew, you and I have discussed this at great lengths. The problem now is that the left is self-destructive. The extreme left is just killing it for anybody who's left of center.
Controversial opinion. I think that a lot of if you listen to what Jordan Peterson says, at least on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, when he talks about the cultural neo-Marxists and basically it's all about power is what he asserts. I'm going to butcher what he's talking about, but basically his point is that it's all about power and power systems of power and oppression, and essentially everyone is part of a hierarchy. That's how society functions. There are hierarchies, and that's not a bad thing. But the problem with hierarchies is that they lead to people who are by the nature there have to be people who are at the bottom, and we have to, if we're gonna continue with hierarchies, which it seems like that's the best way to keep society going, we need to make sure that people don't pile up on the bottom and they're not stuck at zero. They can still play the game and have a chance to move up. Because if you have too many people build up at the bottom who are disenfranchised, then the whole fucking thing topples over. Yeah. And people on the left are essentially saying that, like, flipping that hierarchy on its head, and that it's like, if you're an oppressor, you're a piece of shit. You're a bad person. Like, again, I'm butchering it. Really, just you should don't like. I don't know about his lectures. I haven't really
Well, just
listened to his
keep
lectures.
keep talking. So
he basically talks about how they set this arbitrary boundary of language and identity politics as the way to determine who has power. And right now, because people who are disenfranchised can like call everyone out, they have more power than they should have. These neo-Marxists, whatever he calls them, have more power because they can call other people out for being an oppressor, right? The problem is when you get into identity politics like that, if you're like thinking about Russia and like when the Stalin came and like was it Stalin or Lenin?
Well, you're talking about identity politics with Stalin. I think
no. So when Lenin first came in, it was like questioning people with the aristocracy, and it's like categorizing it basically. Do you get sent to the gulag and killed, or are you part of the Communist Party? Basically, the point he's making is that both these things line up because if you put anyone under a microscope enough, you will find that somewhere in their identity they are both oppressed and oppressor. And like at that point, if you have any amount of oppressor in your identity, you then go into that pile of people who are part of the oppression. And how, if you examine this too closely, that system doesn't work, but they're trying to push this system of... Yeah, I'm lost in the soup now, because I don't know his ideas well enough to like really speak to them. But essentially his point is, fuck the far left, because they're going to ruin everything.
And I don't disagree with that. I don't know why everyone had to become such an extremist. Is it the internet? Did Mark Zuckerberg do all this?
Actually, the theory is that
But fuck, I don't know.
the internet and cable news.
Because once again, we live here in our own personal lives. I'm just not running into extreme. The extreme leftists are very vocal on the internet, and that's where I'm running into them. A lot.
That's where so much influence.
I know. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying in my own life and people I actually interact with, face to face. It's I'm still. That's why I feel so terrible because I'm still faced with the really ugly right. I'm still faced with people who see a hijab and think you should get deported. I still see those people, and it's that.
The problem
In my own life, it looks so much more dangerous when I'm seeing. I can't. That's not my. That's the thing. I can ignore the internet pretty well. I can't ignore.
Well, the big
things people say that I know.
The big thing, the big problem is, and why everyone should care about the far left, is that where this is happening is on college campuses.
Education.
And it's education, higher education, and the media. Are the two places where this is prevalent.
And they have political influence.
And they have those.
They're the only influence. That's
both of those things have tremendous influence, specifically education and college campuses. And it's disturbing to me that this is specifically on college campuses. There was that horrible thing with Evergreen State College a couple years back where that Jewish professor was called a racist and they were hunting him down with bats to try to get him.
To use sonar?
No, hunting him down with baseball bats I don't even know what they're
seek
playing.
my bats.
But essentially the school, I've talked about it before, if you remember, stop me, but essentially the school had a day of absence for all the people of color on campus.
Yeah.
So on that day, to show the impact to everyone else of what it would be like if no one of color was on campus, all the people of color left and didn't show up that day to make a statement.
Yeah.
Totally fine. But this year, the year that this happened, the local Black Lives Matter group said, instead of a day of absence, we want all the white, you white people don't show up to school today. And this professor was like, that's racist. You can't tell someone that because they're a certain race, they can't show up to school today. That's racist. That is racism. And then he got fired. The school president was they borderline held him hostage. And they were he was talking. And he was gesturing with his hands. That's a microaggression. Stop that.
I remember that.
Stop using your hands. That's a microaggression.
I remember the mic.
And then
I remember on the news they had people dissecting his hand language, and it was this is fucking ridiculous. He's talking. What the fuck?
The thing that's so telling is he puts his hands down, and the people who are filming or whatever start laughing. It's a microaggression. Stop that. And he's okay. And then they're laughing. As he puts his hands down
because they know they're being stupid.
Well, because again, it's about flipping the.
Power, it is the whole thing. We talk about it. I fucking hate this because it sucks that I wish we were 3 black men or 3 women or something.
I'm non-binary.
I'm just saying it sucks that I fucking hate that it's so hard. It's just our voice is very much. It's nothing because it's we are the problem.
I'm poly.
We were the problem. We're still the problem. But it's
Francois, excuse me. I'm poly and bi.
Yeah, I remember. I remember what you are.
I'm proud to say that I'm not. I'm
Zig,
also.
sir, whatever
I'm also coming out today to everyone who listens to the podcast as non-binary.
I can't wait until this is not a thing anymore. But no, what the fuck was I saying now?
Our voice has no voice.
Oh yes. Okay. So the whole you saying reverse racism. That whole thing, that whole argument.
There's just
and when people say there's no such thing, and it's
that's reverse racism. There's just racism.
Yeah, there's just racism. I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. Racism against white people. People saying you can't be racist towards a white person. It's for racism to exist at all. Yes, you have to be able to be racist towards a white person as well as everyone. You can't decide that one sect cannot be oppressed. You can't decide that white men can't be oppressed.
I do have to go here.
Why?
To kind of finish things off, along your point, that's the big problem with this progressive movement, is that they're taking the normal definition of racism, and instead of having it be, but what it is, just discrimination towards
a group based on arbitrary things.
Yeah, it's now that plus oppression. So it's like black people can't be racist because they're being oppressed.
Yeah.
So therefore they can't. That's not racist. It's just discrimination. It's just discriminatory.
Yeah.
It's not racism. And it's like, because racism is so charged now, that's important, because if you're saying that being a Nazi, being racist is a trigger thing, and only white people can be racist essentially because they're on top, that's a pretty big disparity of.
So here's my question: if the white people showed up to this school when they weren't supposed to, is that racist?
If they did show up or they didn't show up,
If they did show up on the day they're not supposed to,
they would be. Yeah.
Well,
some people would probably say it was a racist thing.
Well, the whole thing is like,
You're not supporting black people.
you're not supporting Black Lives Matter if you're a racist, probably. Yeah.
So that's the thing.
The whole thing, there's a very, very big difference from being like, we as a group are not going to show up to make a statement, and then that there's the difference between that and saying, hey, you're white, don't show up today.
Well, I kind of mentioned this the other day, that I was like, to me, this is what it is. It's, you can no longer be mistaken in any way, shape, or form. You can no longer be on the fence. You are not allowed to be like, is Black Lives Matter?
I'm not sure.
You can't say, is Black Lives Matters, is that good or is that not good? You're not allowed to think about it. You can't. You have to just decide right now. Right now, do you think Black Lives Matter? Now, say yes,
Are you with us or against us?
Again, like, you have to immediately. Without, you can't think about it. It's like, but who's involved with the Black Lives?
No, you are thinking about it.
No,
That's
but I'm
racist.
just saying, it's like, then you start to say, but who's involved with the Black Lives Matter? It doesn't matter who's involved. Do you fucking think this is? It's like, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Well, what is the Democratic political? It doesn't fucking matter what their platform is. Do you support the Democrats? Do you support the Republicans? It's like, you don't get a second of breathing to take everything in,
and
think about what you actually support and what you actually think is important, and then go with that. It's like,
and you don't get to apologize or
you don't get
say,
to
or
I was
say
wrong.
Like, hey, I've actually done some research. And you know what?
I grew.
I grew.
Yeah, you're not allowed to be. That's the thing. You have to be the same person from the day you were born to the day you die. You're not allowed to have been a racist and then you learned about how. That's the thing. If you were a racist when you were like 25,
unless you're on Upworthy.
What's Upworthy?
Like, if you're on Upworthy, then it's okay that you were a racist and became not a racist. Then you're
What's
a hero.
I don't know what Upworthy is.
It's just like a thing that's supposed to give out positive news media.
Well,
this one guy
that's
was out
a big...
there that was a racist, became not a racist, and now it's like it was so good that you're such a good person, and it's like he used to hit black people with bats. It's like, yeah, but he's such a good guy.
That's with all these things.
If you were never racist, that sucks.
The Kevin Hart
you
thing.
didn't learn anything.
These things should end here. Like James Gunn, Kevin Hart, all this shit should end. This is where it should end. They find these old tweets, whatever, which shouldn't be an issue. But you find these old tweets. You see, it's like, oh, that guy he was anti-gay. You go up to him and you say, do you not like gays? And if the person says, no, I'm fine with gays now, end of it.
Or I always was, and it was a joke.
Or whatever. But I'm just saying, it's like, it doesn't fucking matter who somebody was 10 years ago if they didn't commit a fucking crime, like killing people, sexual abuse, shit like that, which it does matter if you did in the past. But if you said a homophobic slur when you were younger, and you have changed your ways, it should matter that you are a different person now.
It should.
Okay, thank you guys as always for tuning in.
Next episode, we are going to have a very fun segment.
Yes.
So, I'm
Tune
excited
in
for that.
Look at this.
Kevin's very excited for that segment.